Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick presentation on a footloose industry. So I know that seems like a bit of a strange term now to you, but it's just something important to know for the short and the long questions. So we know what an industry is. An industry is a factory. A factory makes or manufactures products. We're okay with that. So what is a footloose industry? I suppose, and just you can follow the bullet points as I'm going through them here in front of you. Many modern industries, many newer industries, we'll say, that have opened in the last 30, 40, 50 years. Unlike industries in earlier centuries, many of the new modern industries, they are called footloose. Okay, so many of the newer industries and factories that we have nowadays, we refer to them as footloose. So a footloose industry is not tied to any one location. So it can be situated and it can locate successfully in a wide variety of locations. So for example, Intel Ireland, located in Leixlip in County Kildare, that manufactures microchips, they are a footloose industry. And primarily they're a footloose industry because they make a light product. And if you're making a light product, it's easy to close up your factory in the morning and decide, forget about Leixlip, I'm going to move down to Limerick City. They've more educated people down there, they've more resources. So if you have a light industry, it's footloose. It's easy to move it from place to place. It can be moved to a number of locations. It's not tied to any one location. Now, who was tied to a specific location? Well, hundreds of years ago in the past, the iron and steel industries, textile industries, heavy engineering industries, they were tied down to specific locations. And for example, the iron and steel industry had to locate beside the coal fields in Britain or Germany or France or Belgium. The reason being is because coal was the source of electricity and power back then. They didn't have any other power or any other energy. So coal, they burnt it and that created the heat. And for the iron and steel industry, they used that heat to smelt the iron ore into making iron and steel. So it just made sense for them. So think of it nowadays, we're so lucky, even for Ahenish and even for the likes of Intel, we've got actual electricity, actual power, like electricity sources, electricity lines. Whereas back then, centuries ago, all they had was coal and they burnt that for energy, for electricity. So I suppose back then, heavy industries were tied to specific locations. So they had to locate beside their source of energy, which was coal. And just looking at the last bullet point, manufacturing industries and factories nowadays are not tied down to locating their coal-filled sites because coal isn't the source of power for factories. So we're lucky in that sense. So what makes a modern industry footloose? Well, firstly, we have so many industrial estates around Ireland. Almost all of the large towns all have an industrial estate at the edge of the town. If you have an industrial estate, and we do in Ireland, we have a load of them, that encourages factories to set up. So that means that they're footloose. They're not tied to their location. They can locate in an industrial estate in Mallow, or they can shut that one and they can move to an industrial estate in Limerick if they want to. So the fact that we have industrial estates there for factories means that they can successfully locate their factories in a wide variety of locations. Say Intel, for example, decide they want to stay in Leixlip, they're happy there, but they would like to set up another factory plant in Mallow. Well, there's loads of industrial estates in Mallow, they can do that. So industrial estates are located all around Ireland and abroad. It's the IDA, who we've mentioned before, the Industrial Development Authority. They encourage light industries to set up in industrial estates, particularly in the smaller towns, because the IDA know that that will create employment. So the likes of industrial estates allows us to have footloose factories, footloose industries. Okay, if we didn't have industrial estates, it would be a bit of a disaster, because the industrial estate is ready made, it's set up, it's got a factory building, it's got electricity, it's got broadband, it's got water, it's got parking spaces, it's just set up for a factory to move in, so it's brilliant. Another thing that allows us to have footloose industries is electricity. Nowadays, we're so lucky in the times that we live in, electricity is widely available, and electricity is the main source of energy for all of us, for our homes and for factories. So that allows you to locate your factory anywhere in Ireland, anywhere, because you know there'll be electricity a source there. So that makes industries footloose. Another thing is excellent transport. I mean, we're lucky in the majority of Ireland. We have excellent roads, we have excellent motorways, we have airports, we have ports, we have excellent access to transport. So the national roads and the rail allow for quick and easy transport of resource materials and raw materials to the factories, regardless of where they're situated. Say take Intel again, for example. We know that the one input into Intel is the silicon wafers. They import those silicon wafers in via Dublin Airport. So the fact that our transport facilities are fantastic, you can locate anywhere, you can be Footloose, but you can still get your products in quickly to you because our transport allows that. Another thing to mention about the light industries is they make light products. They're very light but very valuable. So that means that you can locate wherever you want. Like Intel again is a brilliant example. Intel sells the microchips abroad. They're located far from their markets, but because it's a light product, it's easy to transport it. Okay, so you can get it to your market cheaply. Again, if Intel did decide to leave Leixlip, they could just easily relocate down to, we'll say, Mallow, because you just shut up the factory. It's very easy to ship all your, or not to ship, but to get all your products by, we'll say, truck down to Mallow and set up a new factory there. If it's light products, it's easy to move around. The workforce makes a lot of industries it allows them to be Footloose. The workforce, most people working in factories now own cars. So if your workers are coming from a rural area, they are car owning, they'll travel into the factory. So you don't have to locate your factory right in the middle of a town. You can locate the outskirts of the town, or say you're working in a factory in Mallow and you're living in Kanturk. Most people own cars, you can easily transport into the factory. Ring roads are fantastic, and we kind of mentioned transport earlier. Ring roads, especially like the M50 that we have going around Dublin City, they allow quick and easy transport of goods regardless of where your manufacturing industry is located. So it allows you to avoid traffic, it allows you to get quick access to the airport, quick access via motorway to your factory site. It's brilliant. Okay, so there's a lot of things that allow factories to be Footloose. Electricity, what else did we mention? We mentioned transport, the labour workforce own cars, excellent transport available, they're light products, it's easy to move them around, and the fact that we've industrial estates. So do have one example of a Footloose industry. So that would be a computer industry. They make light products, so it's easy to move around. So you're not tied to your location, which is absolutely brilliant. You don't have to say, oh my God, I'm after setting up a factory in Mallow and I'm tied there now forever. You can shut the factory and move it if you want to. So just a quick bit of detail here about industrial estates, in case any of you haven't a notion about them. What are they? They're land zoned for manufacturing. So you wouldn't be able to build a house inside an industrial estate, obviously. It's primarily there for manufacturing, for factories. Where do you find them? Usually at the edges of towns and cities. Why? Because, well, number one, anyway, the land is cheaper the further you move out of the city. You learnt that last year. And the further you move out of the town. There tends to be plentiful more supply of land out there. So you have a bigger site to build your factories on. Now, usually it's someone that comes up with the idea, look, I'm going to build an industrial estate, or perhaps the IDA or the government. They build it, they lay down the concrete, they have lovely yards in, they build a load of big warehouse buildings, they link it up with electricity, broadband, water, they plumb it, the whole lot. They have parking spaces drawn out, and then it's just a matter of attracting in factories to locate there. The factory will either rent the building or they will buy it. So the transport into the industrial estates generally tend to be very good. You can see in this picture here, the Western Industrial Estate in the bottom right hand corner. Like that has fantastic access to the Junction 9, to the M50. Even the Lewis is there for its workers to access the factory if they need to. So you really would want to locate your industrial estate near good transport, because you've got trucks coming in and out and workers. And also by locating at the edge of the town, you're avoiding traffic. Services are generally tend to be brilliant in these industrial estates. You've got electricity, water, telecommunications. Everything is set up for the person. So say you decide to set up a factory in the morning, your best bet is to go into an industrial estate. Manufacturers can often purchase inputs and components from other manufacturers in the same estate. So say, for example, Intel was in this industrial estate in front of you, and say there was another factory across the way that made cardboard packaging. Well, they would need that to pack in the microchips to send it abroad. So like you can actually source a lot of products from each other, and that's good business as well. So I hope I've explained industrial estates okay to you, and I hope that you